Hey everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. In today's video, we are discussing about gaining weight and bulking and how you can do it properly without putting on too much fat. So recently, I've shared my previous experience about dirty bulking and how in college, I really didn't care about my training and all I did was eat, and I thought I had to eat to get big, and I ended up gaining so much more fat than I wanted. And at that time, I wasn't as knowledgeable about, putting on muscle and how to do it properly while minimizing fat gain. So a lot of people have been DMing me on Instagram asking me about this question, asking me if they're doing it properly and if they're on the right track towards their weight gain and their bulking process. So I'm here to discuss about pretty much how you can do it properly and what are 3 things you should be looking for when it comes to gaining weight and also bulking. So the number 1 thing that you should be focusing on when you're gaining weight and you're bulking is your training program. A lot of people think, if I eat enough, if I just eat more, if I eat more calories, then I'm just gonna put on muscle. No, your muscle doesn't just magically appear out of nowhere if you just eat more. It's just gonna be stored as fat. Instead, your training program is what you should prioritize first before you even consider being in a calorie surplus. So training is number 1. Your training program has to be on point. So pretty much your training program should relate to your goal of putting on more muscle, gaining weight. In terms of your training program, there should be some type of a progression. If you're just going in there, getting a workout in just for a workout and you're not really tracking your progress and you're eating all this food in a surplus, you're just gonna be storing as fat. The reason why we want to make sure our training program is on point is because if we're eating all this food, we want to use this food and use it as energy towards our workouts, so we can have better workouts, we can lift more weight, we could do more work in the gym, and we're gonna end up putting more of a stimulus for our body in order to build more muscle and eventually lead to our weight gain or a proper bulk where we put on muscle and minimize fat gain. Okay, so training program is super important. I can't stress it enough because I've been there, I've done it. My training program wasn't on point. I was in there working out, I had some type of structure. Some days I wanted to lift heavy, some days I didn't. So you want to make sure your training program is tailored towards muscle building and strength gaining, right? So you want to work in the rep ranges maybe between 1 to 12. That way you're using enough weight, you're gaining enough stimulus for your body, and you're making enough changes. So that way you're giving your body enough stimulus, so when you do eat all that food, your body has a need for it instead of it being stored as fat. Okay, so number 1 is your training program. That's something a lot of people tend to neglect. They just think about their food and just things like, I'm just gonna eat more. Instead, you should be training harder, because in response, when you train harder, your body's gonna want more food. Naturally be more hungry when you train harder and when you lift heavier weight and when you do more in the gym. So if you train hard, the food will come. But for some people, you do need to track your food, because a lot of times, even for myself, when I first started, I was one of the hard gainers. Really tough time gaining weight because I thought I was eating enough, but at the end of the day, I was not. So make sure the next thing to worry about is your food intake, so your calories. So making sure that you're in a slight calorie surplus, okay, all right, let me repeat that again. You just need to be in a very slight calorie surplus, okay? So maybe calorie surplus of 100 to 300 calories, I would say is good enough. You don't have to be in a 500 calorie surplus, because think about it. If you were to be in a 500 calorie surplus for a whole week, you're gaining a pound a week. That means you're gaining 4 pounds in a month, and that means in a year you're gaining 48 pounds. And trust me, not all that 48 pound is gonna be muscle. So you don't have to be gaining weight at a tremendous pace, especially when you're trying to gain weight. And same thing when it comes to fat loss, you don't have to lose it at a tremendous pace. So slow and steady, it's gonna win the race, because you're gonna be maximizing more muscle gain and minimizing fat gain. Okay, so when you're looking for the scale and how fast it should be going, this could vary from person to person. Some people, they would like to see the scale just jump up like I did when I first started bulking. All I care about was seeing the scale jump up. So don't worry too much about the scale. Focus more on visual images. If you could take progress pics, that would be great. That way you could take a look at yourself, see if you're gaining fat too quickly or if you're actually putting on muscle, because sometimes the scale could say you're gaining weight, but at the end of the day, that's just a number on a scale. Best if we just take some progress pictures and see where we're storing a lot of that weight gain. Okay, so when it comes to, one thing you have to realize when it comes to bulking and gaining weight is that you're gonna store some type of fat. So a lot of times people come up to me and ask, hey Terry, how can I do this, the lean bulk way? You see so many people on social media, oh, I'm lean bulking, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna keep my abs, I'm gonna keep a low body fat percentage. And for some people they can, because genetically they're gifted with the ability to not put on as much fat and they can still put on muscle. And for some other individuals, they're gonna put on some fat in areas that you probably don't want it to be. Like for myself, it's in this neck area, in the face. My abs do tend to fade away when I start gaining body weight and gain some body fat when I get into this weight gain bulking phase. And for some of you, that's gonna happen too. So you can't pick or choose where the fat could be stored. All you have to keep in mind is that you're gonna put on fat, and if it's in those areas in the stomach and areas that you don't want it to be, unfortunately that's just genetic. Unless you had different genetics, there's no way around it. So fat gains could be inevitable. Like, you can't stop that from happening. So we want to minimize fat gain as much as we can, and how we do this is just pretty much being in a slight calorie surplus, or just in the love handles. Like, you could still put on a good amount of muscle by being at a maintenance, especially for a lot of the newer or even intermediate lifters. You can still put on some muscle when you're in a maintenance. Other thing to keep in mind is making sure your protein intake is high. But if your calories are all coming from fats and carbs, it's not going to be beneficial for you, because you need protein to build muscle. You need protein to help create protein synthesis in your body, to actually help recover from your training and to rebuild those muscles after it gets torn down from your training sessions. Okay, so when it comes to calories, you just need to be in a slight surplus. Making sure your protein is high. I recommend anywhere between 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight, and you'll be fine. You don't need anything more than that. So the third thing you want to keep in mind is, when should you stop bulking, or when should you stop gaining, or when should you look at the scale and say, hey, this is enough, I don't need to gain any more weight. So just like fat loss, when we step on a scale and we're tracking our weight, we want to see a trend. And for fat loss, we want to see a trend going down, but for weight gain, we want to see a trend going up. But at the same time, we don't want to just see it going up and up and up and up and up and not knowing when to stop. So when should you stop bulking is when you are starting to get uncomfortable. Just like when it comes to fat loss, when you start feeling tired, you start feeling exhausted, when you feel like you can't have any more adherence to your diet, that's when you stop for fat loss. When it comes to bulking, some signs you want to keep in consideration when you should stop bulking, or when should you stop doing that, is when you start feeling like you have to just shove down food down your throat in order to be in a calorie surplus. You feel lethargic. For me, I was snoring at nights when I push my body to limits that I never pushed it before, to 180 pounds. Whenever you're risking your actual health in order for this cutting or bulking process to reach its maximum potential, is when you should stop. Unless you're a competitor and you have to push the limits and kind of be abnormal from the average individual, you don't have to be in that uncomfortable state. So whenever you find that you're getting a little too uncomfortable, time to kind of just maintain at that body weight. And you can still put on muscle, but you don't need to just see the scale go up in order for you to see results in your body to change. But overall, just find a place where you could comfortably be at, where you can lift weights, where you can make progress in the gym. That's number one. If you're not seeing progress going up in the gym, but you're seeing just your scale jump up, then you should probably cut it off. Okay, so I hope you found the video helpful. Hopefully this gives you guys some insight on what you should be focusing on. And as you can see here, number one thing is not to focusing on the scale to go up, right? The number one thing to focus on is to see your training progress in the gym, a training program, and actually track your training. A lot of people, when they bulk, I'm telling you this time and time again, when people bulk, they don't track their training progress. And you're not gonna be seeing results at the end after you cut down that body fat if you don't track your training progress, because you probably haven't put on as much muscle as you would like. So make sure, number one thing, your training program has to be on point before you ever consider even going into a calorie surplus, is making sure your training program is on point, because that's how you can give yourself a stimulus in order for your body to actually adapt and change. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and also hit that subscribe button down below. If you have any questions or comment, make sure you leave it down below. I'm gonna help you answer them as well. Also, if you want to see what I post daily and where I give fitness tips information on a daily basis, make sure you follow me on the IG at TerryLynFit. And if you did like the video, once again, hit that thumbs up, because it's gonna help the video and help the channel. Remember, we do 2 videos here every single week, one earlier during the week for fitness tips like this, and then one later during the week where I do that foodie adventure. So if you are a foodie lover, you like fitness, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.